there's an injustice against you or someone you love or someone you believe in, stand up. Don't sit down on them. They need you.
Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore, and yeah, we're sort of talking politics today. But I mean, this is pop culture, politics, it's everything. Had to not at least understand what's going on right now in the news and the way the media is handling it. Donald Trump indicted, Stormy Daniels being forced to pay him. I just got questions, and I thought if I'm ever going to do this, I want to do it with someone even smarter than me, and I'm happy that we have someone here to do it. Two people smarter than me. We have Christopher Melcher, attorney at law, and Steph, the alternate. How you both doing? Chris, welcome. Thanks for doing this with me.
Great. Yeah. I mean, this is such a big news story, and I know it's not the typical one that you cover, but yeah, so a lot going on here, and I'm super interested in it. So I'm going to just go right down the middle on the thing, and we'll talk about what the legal issues are.
I love it. That's what I figured, guys. Look, because I know I don't want to the reason we don't talk politics here a lot is because I don't want to polarize, have you guys all fighting. This isn't about whether you like Trump or not. I know some people do, and some people don't. It's very divisive. I've said my own opinions. I'm not hiding them from you, but I want to try to look at this as unbiasedly as possible. What's actually going on? What's the facts? What's the case? Steph, you excited for this? Think we can handle this fairly?
I think we can certainly handle this fairly. If we can survive the Snyder Cull, I think we can survive this, my friend.
We can survive anything. Well, before we get to it, we're going to get to it in 1 second, but I do want to say we have big news we're going to reveal at the very end of this, so stay tuned. Huge, massive, exciting news that I'm ready to show you guys. We're going to get there in a minute, so make sure if you haven't subscribed, get ready, like, leave a comment, all that jazz. All right, but first, let's get to it. All right, so Christopher, where do we even begin? I guess there's two things I want to, because I'm going to ask a lot of dumb questions. Audience, I'm sure you probably have some as too. Let's ask them. Two things, obviously, I want it just overall. Why is he being arrested? Is he actually going to go to jail? I see the media constantly saying 100 years and all this stuff. Like they're really trying to make this epic. And then on top of that, we also have the news today that Stormy Daniels now must pay 122. We knew this before, but now I guess again that the appeals court now ruled again that she failed the defamation lawsuit and therefore she must pay. And she's made it clear she's like, I'm never paying him a dime. How does that entail? Before we get to that part, let's go to Trump real quick. Here's Trump saying,
he did plead
his
not
defense.
guilty to
Here he is in court.
felony counts of falsifying business records and addressed those charges later from Mar-a-Lago last night.
The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it.
Okay, well, there's his political spin. Definitely looked more like a campaign rally than anything else. But Christopher, what are these charges that he's up for? Let's start there, I guess.
Sure. So he was indicted by a grand jury in the state of New York for having falsified business records with the intent to defraud, which is a misdemeanor. So that's a very low-level crime in the state of New York. But it was elevated to a felony because it was alleged that these falsified business records were done to conceal another crime. And under New York law, if you make a fake business record to cover up another crime, that elevates it to a felony. So what these underlying records all relate to are hush money payment of $130,000 that was paid to Stormy Daniels when she made an accusation that she had an affair with Donald Trump, which he denies, and that she was going to go forward publicly with this information in the lead up to the election. This is right after this very damaging Access Hollywood tape came out, and that Donald Trump, through his lawyer at the time, Michael Cohen, had structured a $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels through setting up some company and funneling the money through that she eventually got. There's also a payment to a doorman at Trump Tower who had made an allegation that Donald Trump had fathered a child, and $30,000 was paid to that individual also through structured payments, so it didn't have, Donald Trump's fingerprints on it. That story was eventually determined to be false. And then there was also another payment to a lady, McDougal, who had also alleged to have had an affair with him, and got some hush money not to talk about it.
Just to make sure, because it's not just Stormy, right? Is it just the two women that we know of right now, or is there more that maybe come out?
So there were 3 hush money payments that are referenced, kind of obliquely in this indictment. And it's Stormy Daniels, or her name is Clifford. And then, and I think it's Karen McDougal. I'm sorry if I got her last name
That sounds
wrong.
familiar. Yes, I remember reading about her.
She's a former Playboy model. And then this doorman who had really what turned out to be false information about Donald Trump that he was trying to sell to American media. And then these were the first 2 with McDougal and the doorman. These were catch and kill stories. So they not only structured the payment so it wouldn't look like it was coming from Donald Trump, but they structured it in a way that they were purchasing the story rights from these individuals with the expectation or appearance that they would be published. But then because Donald Trump had this relationship with David Pecker at American Media, they killed the story. They never published it. So that's why those were 2 catch and kill. And then the Stormy Daniels $100,000 payment was just strictly, we're saying, hey, don't make disparaging comments about me. And that was more of a straight ahead, although, kind of concealed transaction. So these payments were made, but not by Donald Trump individually. They were structured in these very circuitous type of ways. And so where does this false business records thing come up? So what happened is that Donald Trump ended up paying Michael Cohen, the attorney, a bunch of money, which Michael Cohen then had used to make these payments. Okay, this is in a very simple way. And but when the payment was going to go to Michael Cohen, it would come to him as income, taxable income, as attorney's fees, because that's the way they were calling it on the books. So for Donald Trump to pay Michael Cohen attorney's fees, well, Michael Cohen now has to pay taxes on that money, has to declare it. So if he gets $100 in attorney's fees from a client and he's in a 50% tax bracket in New York, he gets to keep $50, and the other $50 he has to pay to New York and IRS and everybody else. So all of these payments combined worked out to be about, I think it was $180,000 that Michael Cohen had fronted from his own cash. He took a loan against his house. He fronted the money, paid it to these people, and then went to Donald with the expectation and understanding that Donald Trump would reimburse him. So when the reimbursement time came, well, since it would come to Michael Cohen as taxable income, he couldn't just get $180,000 because by the time Cohen paid taxes, he'd only wind up with $90,000. So they grossed it up. So they said, look, for Michael Cohen to walk away with $190,000 in his pocket after paying taxes, he has to get $360,000. And then Trump threw on a $60,000 bonus on top of it for $420,000. So there's $420,000 going to Michael Cohen from Donald Trump that were structured into 12 annual payments, I think of $35,000, that Donald Trump called legal fees. And that Michael Cohen accepted as legal fees, but were really not fees. They were, well, $60,000 of it was fees. The rest of it was really reimbursing these 3 hush money payments. So the New York DA saying like, hey, that's a false business record entry. These were not legal fees. These were really personal expenses in a way. Were certainly not business expenses. It had nothing to do with the operation of his business. So they were put on various books and records, some of it for himself personally, all this stuff, fine, but coded in a wrong way. Now, with the intent to conceal and deprive the public or the state from understanding what was really going on. That's their core allegation. How does it elevate then from a misdemeanor to a felony? They say there was 2 ways. One, that he did it for campaign purposes, that he was really, these were essentially contributions of his own money to his own campaign to keep the information from getting out there because he might not get elected. That's one allegation. The other allegation is they did it for tax purposes because not only did he structure it this way, he apparently wrote it off. Donald Trump wrote it off on his taxes as if these were business expenses that he could write off as legal expenses. So he went that step And now they're saying, well, hey, that's tax. You're creating false record of legal fees when they're really not. They were personal expenses, and you wrote it off on your taxes. So you were concealing this tax crime by these false records. That's the felony. Now, look, this is super technical stuff. There's no question about it. And it's deflating. When we all read the indictment, we're like, look, you put this guy in the state of New York, and I mean, it was a big production to bring this guy into court, and you do this to this guy for that. And so a lot of people were looking for a big wow. But the thing is, I would be worried if I were, a criminal defendant or a criminal defense attorney on a paper case, because those are the ones that the prosecutors win. It's not like we saw Gwyneth Paltrow's ski trial. He said, she said. Classic he said, she said. Not a scrap of paper, not a video or an audio recording to prove anything. It's just listen to these two people. Who do you believe? And if you can't decide, whoever's bringing the case loses because they got the burden of proof. Here, this is all paper. And it's like, here's a record. Did Michael Cohen perform $420,000 in legal services? No, that's false. Were these expenses for the operation of a business? No. So, these cases are not sexy, but, this is how Al Capone got. He didn't get it for the big stuff he did. He got convicted of tax fraud. So he should be worried because it's a paper case.
Well, that's what. So that to get to he should be worried is the bottom line, because I'm mishearing, but because it's a paper case, you feel there is clearly evidence here of these crimes committed because it's in the paper. It's not business expenses. Can he blame his team, his employees? And I feel like that's what I hear him constantly doing. Well, I didn't know. I just did what they told me to do, and my experts told me to do. Is that a fair argument?
Oh, sure. He has, when I'm saying he should be worried, it's only because it doesn't rely just on the credibility of Michael Cohen. There's paperwork here.
Right.
So it's not a he said, she said. So that's why I say he should, be concerned. Now he's got a million defenses. He's got a lot of defenses. And part of it is like, hey, I wasn't thinking about campaign contribution law when I was making this payment. And it was to avoid embarrassment. I didn't want my wife and kids and other people to know about it. And that's why I did what I did. And it was no way to assist my campaign. Now, the problem with that defense is that there is evidence. Certainly the payments came right before, the election occurred. So it was during the campaign. And Michael Cohen is going to say that the payments the payment to Stormy Daniels, $130,000, when she agreed to the $130,000, he tried to change the payment term so it was due after the election. And Michael Cohen's going to testify that Donald Trump wanted the payment to be due after the election because he was then going to stiffer, because he figures once I'm elected, who cares if the information comes out? Now, that's what Michael Cohen's going to say. And there are records to establish that when Michael Cohen continued the negotiations with Daniels' attorney, that they tried to change the payment term to a point after the election. And Stormy is like, you give me the money now or I'm going to start talking now. And so they couldn't do that. But if that evidence is believed by a jury, it absolutely connects the payment to the election, because if it were a payment for her silence only to keep his wife from knowing, well, he would want his wife never to know. It wouldn't have anything to do with the election. But if this is key evidence, and if it's believed, then it shows that he made the payment in relation to the election, and that instead of disclosing the cash that he essentially contributed to help get elected, he concealed it. Very technical crime. Whether anybody's going to, on the jury think that shows that he understood it was a campaign contribution, I don't know. But he's certainly on the tax one. That's where I think they get him, because if you if you're Donald Trump and you're trying to reimburse $130,000 to Michael Cohen, you would just write him a check for $130,000. And if there were these other payments, equaling whatever, $180,000, you would just say, okay, here, you shelled out $180,000 for me. Here's a check for $180,000. You don't give him $420,000. And the only reason why Donald Trump would say, like, okay, I'm going to double this up is because we're treating it as if it were legal fees. And because we're going to treat this as taxable income to Michael Cohen and a taxable or tax deduction to Donald Trump. So how is he going to explain why he did this? That's going to be very difficult for him.
Well, it's also difficult, again, taking my opinion out of it, like just knowing the guy and how he reacts. Like, he's the best businessman, right? He makes that so clear, the art of the deal and everything, to sort of like be so loud and own how smart you are at business and how much you've done with your buildings and your business and everything. And then to just play dumb, like, well, I didn't know how the taxes and all that stuff works. It's kind of bullshit to me, because it's like, which one is it? Are you the expert or are you not the expert? And it's just interesting that he's playing both sides in that to me as well, which it just feels like he is. Do you think do you think he'll see time? Like, is there enough here that he actually will then, because they keep trying to put out 120 years in prison, yada, yada, yada. How realistic do you think that is based on the charges here?
Well, so that's the problem is that you know, in any of these criminal prosecutions, even if somebody's convicted of multiple offenses, many times the prison sentence runs concurrent. And so you could be convicted of multiple offenses and each carrying, let's say, a year of prison time or 2 years of prison time. Doesn't mean you know, it's like, okay, you got 50 convictions times 2 years is 100 years. They generally will run concurrently. And so in terms of, you know, this would be up to a court to determine if he were convicted by a jury. So they're going to have to convince jurors, you know, a unanimous jury that he did this, which is going to be very difficult to do. And then
how do you get 12 independent, non-Republican, non-Democratic people to really try to do that fairly? That seems impossible.
Yeah, it's, you know, on all high profile cases, it's very difficult. Like you say, there's people who have strong feelings one side or the other, but then there's a lot of people that, you know, really don't follow this stuff and have not rendered full on opinions on it, or at least they'll say that they haven't and get on the jury. So it could be one person who, you know, again, just doesn't, you know, feel that the evidence is sufficient to warrant a conviction. And it's a very difficult thing to convict somebody. And these are highly complex crimes that are alleged. So I don't know how likely it is he would be convicted. It's a crapshoot, any jury trial, honestly. But then if he were convicted, it would be up to a judge to determine whether there would be any jail time. And he has no prior criminal record. The crimes are, you know, again, if he were convicted of them, fairly low level things. He took nobody's money, you know, other than maybe some taxing issues, but that's not even clear that any tax authority lost any money from these transactions, because Michael Cohen paid taxes on the money that he got, presumably, and Donald Trump got a tax deduction for what he paid. So in a way, it's a wash. So at the end, who's the victim of this? The prosecutor would say that, well, the American people, the voters are the victim, but you know, this is a state court prosecution relating to a federal election. So I don't even think that that's a proper consideration, because federal law would preempt any issues of state law. So, you know, like I say, I don't know. I don't know that he gets convicted, and even if he does get convicted, that he does any jail time. He's certainly not taking a deal on it. And this, through all of the motions that would have to be filed and potential appeals, you know, this could go a couple years.
Yeah, I mean, this whole case it's just hard to not see the bias in it either way. I mean, there's so many people, and I'm seeing the comments, and I'll say you guys are being better than I expected, so thank you. There's a lot of Trump and, you know, 2024, and then there's a lot of lock him up. So we're running the gamut here in our crowd, and I'm not trying to really pick a side here. I want to just know what's realistic here, but I do see the complaint in the chat a lot, which is just like, this is clearly just they want to get him no matter what, at all costs. At the same time, like, no one's above due process. And if there's a crime here, we should make sure that things are proceeded. But then there's the argument, yeah, but what about the other presidents and other politicians that have why are they so hung up on Trump? Do you feel like this is a worthy case of, you know, the time and effort of these people behind it? Or do you think this is a bit of a, you know, we just got to get him at all means necessary?
Yeah, I got a problem with it, honestly, because, you know, I'm no fan of Trump. And I think that, you know, there's other things that he's done that, you know, merit inquiry more than this one does. Just looking at the amount of resources that were expended yesterday to transport, him safely in and out of that courthouse. And essentially they had to shut down the entire courthouse to bring him in and out. And then all the prosecutorial resources that are going to be used to put this case on, and for what? I get it. If he lied, cheated, whatever, he should be held accountable. But, this is going back over 6 years ago. The prior prosecutor in New York had looked at this and declined, and then now it's revived. It just seems like, hey, if this is going to be the shot that you're going to take, this is not the right one to do. And that, in a way it's benefiting Donald Trump in a way, that most people could not survive, this level of scrutiny. But, he's been through all this kind of stuff before, and I think he's turning it into making himself a martyr. So it does look political. I do have problems with it. I think technically it seems like they could put a case together, but I do question the use of resources for that case.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. And again, interesting because I've never hid my disdain for Trump on things he did, but this whole thing just feels like, is this really the one that we get him on, or is this just the one you could get him on? And the amount of time and money and resources, it is interesting. One more question I want to get on this, and then I'll bring Steph. And if you guys have a comment you want to send over for Christopher, now's your chance. Thanks to everybody supporting and for trying to keep it civil in here. This other follow-up, though, which I did mention in the beginning, now Stormy Daniels is being forced to pay the legal bills. Is this fair? Do you think this was right? Do you think she will? What happens if she doesn't?
So she sued Donald Trump for defamation for a statement that he made that, her allegations of an affair, which he has denied, was a total con job. And then so she sued him and saying, well, you defamed me because we did have an affair and you're making me look bad. Now, that case was brought when she was represented by Michael Avenatti, who, is now
arrested, right?
Yeah, and rightfully in prison because he defrauded clients, including her, and other just shameless ripoff of clients. And so he was out there promoting himself through this lawsuit, defamation lawsuit against Trump, and he lost. They lost big time, and then they appealed it, and they lost the appeal. And the actual total bill, I think, is $600,000 when you add all the fees and sanctions that she was ordered to pay. So, look, there's a judgment there. She can go bankrupt. She doesn't have the money, or Trump will have to go and try and collect it against her. But, look, we got a system, and she can sue whoever she wants. But if she loses, there's consequences. So I have no sympathy there. I think, she's done, I'm sure, very well off the publicity. Nobody knew who she was really before this. And so I'm sure she's cashing in on other regards. But, hey, you gotta, you want to play in court, then you got to risk getting burned.
It's true. I'm sure there's some benefactor out there who's going to be willing to help her pay this off for the work she did against Trump or whatever, vice versa. So, interesting. All right. Well, Steph, did you have any comments or questions you want to add? Bravo. Christopher eloquently explained that all for us. And I felt like we did it without getting too political or biased. Steph, any questions you want to ask Christopher?
Yeah, just the one really. And it's in regards to Michael Cohen. So he pled guilty about 5 years ago now, I think 2017, 2018, to things like tax fraud, lying to banks, to Congress, and the major one really in all this, violating campaign finance laws. So as this case goes against Donald Trump now, the jury that's selected, will they be privy to that information in regards to Michael Cohen's guilty plea or not?
They will. That's a great question. And in assessing the credibility of a witness, if they've been found to have, committed perjury before, lying under oath, then that's a significant factor in whether you should believe anything this person has to say. Now, Michael Cohen, in his response, is that yes, he did lie, but he lied for Trump, and he says at Trump's direction. And so, for Trump to criticize Cohen as a convicted perjurer, it's like, well, Cohen lied for Trump. That's what Cohen's going to say. And so why shouldn't there be accountability for the person who directed the lie is what Cohen will say. Cohen, ordinarily, somebody who's a convicted perjurer would be given really not much credibility at all. But he's already served his time. And so I think that would be significant to a juror, as opposed to there's a John Edwards case, who's another presidential candidate from North Carolina many years ago, prosecuted for something similar to this hush money payment thing. He was acquitted on many of the charges, and the prosecutor didn't refile against the one that were hung. But in that case, the person who was testifying against had a plea deal and to cooperate. And so there was an incentive to give testimony against John Edwards, because if there wasn't cooperation, that person would end up potentially going to jail. So here, Michael Cohen doesn't have that motivation or threat hanging over him. He's already been convicted. He's served his entire prison sentence, and he's a free man. So other than the revenge element of his story, he's not trying to work off a deal with the government.
And I read, in terms of my research, that generally speaking, people that are, go to court for like first-time offences like this, 99% of the time they don't go to jail. And if they do, it might be like a year, if that, and they'll be out in a couple of months if they do time for good behaviour and overcrowding and all that. Now, Trump's looking at, I believe, 136 years in total when you tot up all the charges against him and what that translates into jail time. What are the chances, if he is found guilty, that he will serve significant jail time on this?
Well, I don't see it. I don't see much of a potential, because again, we got to have one standard for everybody, and whether we like them or not. And when you look at the criminal justice system in pretty much any major city, and what are violent offenders getting in jail time? So if you've committed a violent crime in New York City, what kind of jail time are you going to pull off of that conviction? And so, and unfortunately, a lot of places, not much at all. And so why would this paper crime, when he's basically just moving his own money around through a series of, let's say, false business records, warrant jail time when there's people who, walk into a store and steal stuff and get no jail time at all? Stealing somebody else's property, they get no jail time. Why would he get jail time? So again, for me, it's one standard for everybody. And if that's the state of the criminal justice system in New York, then they should apply the same standard to Trump if he's convicted.
Interesting. Gil just said it too in the chat. Like, why can't he just get a big fine? It does feel like the crimes here almost feel like it should just be massive fines that need to be paid, or something. It's all. Yeah. It is a little odd to me, but well said. Real quick, Miss Kim, thank you, Mr. Melcher, for an unbiased explanation. I haven't watched much on this case because everyone reporting it has a side. I understand it better now. That was our goal here. Amanda Great. B asked you, Mr. Melcher, what about having to prove that he did this with the intent to sway the outcome of an election? Isn't that what is going to be hard to prove, not necessarily the paper trail?
Yeah, any criminal prosecution that involves proof of intent of the defendant is very difficult, because we just have to infer, like, okay, what did he have in mind when he made these payments? Was it to protect his reputation with his wife and family, or just generally, versus to sway the outcome of an election? So and we do have Michael Cohen, though. Michael Cohen's going to testify that this was designed to influence the election. That was part of his plea deal, that when he accepted guilt, that this was done to affect the election. And again, it's going to hinge on, do you believe him? This other fact that I laid out there about, why would Donald Trump, if Cohen's statement is to be believed, want to delay the payment until after the election is done, so he could avoid paying her? Well, that would, to me, it's very strong evidence, if that's true, that he was only trying to buy her silence up until the time he was elected and didn't care thereafter. So these are very difficult things, very complex. And that's the problem with the prosecution. So even if it's able to overcome these hurdles, like also the statute of limitations, this is, a long time ago, and they have a theory as to why they can bring the case so light, but there's going to be a ton of pretrial motions to try and get this thing rid of it. And then ultimately there's going to be jurors that are going to be asking exactly the same questions that all of you are thinking right now. And, prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt to a unanimous verdict.
Well, lots more will be reported. This will be coming. That's why I wanted to at least get a little bit of a deep dive understanding the basics, and I feel like I do understand more of it. We'll see what happens here. But I think that was a good report from Mr. Melcher. Appreciate your insight. Guys, if you haven't already, follow Christopher over on Twitter at @CA_divorce. Before you go, I'd like to announce this while you're there. Steph, we should let's make it part of the video. Shall we do it real quick? Guys, we announced this yesterday, but I thought let's premiere this teaser and then you can put the short afterwards. We can put it out there. But guys, we have a special teaser. Part of the reason I was late was finally getting some of this all completed. But let's watch this quick teaser together so you can see it directly, what we're doing and what's coming to you soon. Ready, guys?
The statement has a defamatory implication about Mr. Depp. Answer, yes.
I think this proves one thing. If you believe in something and you keep pushing, eventually you'll get it.
You all did that. Let's make more wishes come true. Join us Tuesday, April 11th, as we raise funds for Make-A-Wish.
You meant it to, don't you think? Oh, hardly.
You're not going to miss the surprises we have in store for you. Join us here on Popcorn Planet Tuesday to make more wishes come true. Oh my God, how epic does that look? Yes, and Mr. Melcher will be there. Christopher, Steph. Oh my God, you see all those people? Tug, Laura B, House and Habit, Nick Ricada. I mean, I can't even name them all. And we got more coming in by the day. Guys, this is going to be so epic. We are going to now publicly put out the links are all going to be live. The campaign starts on Monday. Our stream will start on Tuesday. Can we raise 25 grand for Make-A-Wish? That's our goal. What do you think, Steph? You think we're gonna be able to do it?
Oh, hell yeah. Let's go.
That's our goal. We got some time. We're so in honor of Johnny 1 year later and all the justice for Johnny community that has been built. So amazing people in this community. I thought, what a good opportunity on the year anniversary to bring us all back together and do some more good. A way to reconnect, to celebrate, to see what everyone's up to, what everyone's doing, and some surprises are in store. We also intend to have Captain Corey involved. This is an opportunity for him to help make more wishes come true. We have become so close to him and his family. I know he's been having some ups and downs, but we thought this would be a really good opportunity for him to get involved and help other kids out there through Make-A-Wish, which is what made his wish happen in the first place. So who's excited? Tuesday, 11th of April. I hope to see you guys there at noon. Lots more in store. We've been working a while, but especially even more the past couple weeks, and we will be through Tuesday to make this a huge event. So I hope to see you guys there. Christopher, what do you think? Or can we count on you? Going to be there?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll be putting some money in too. It's very, very cool and so positive to, bring everybody together for a great cause and also just to see everybody again. So I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be epic. So honored to have you there, and everybody's going to be there. So stay tuned. That's it for this video. Check out the short. Spread the word. I'll be tweeting it out too. Spread the word for us. Hashtag. What is the hashtag, Steph? What's it? What do we ultimately say?
You ask me now.
Let's make wishes come true. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Hashtag let's make wishes come true. I'm going to put it in the description.
Yeah.
Let's make wishes come true. We'll be doing it all week and especially on Tuesday. So we'll see you guys there. Stay tuned. Don't miss it. If you're watching live, we're not done, but I'm just trimming this for the main video. Thank you guys so much here for watching.